think I might start by introducing our speakers. Very pleased today to have two people speaking. For the first time, we have two American speakers on HexAuFoil. Our first speaker today will be Dr. Chen Xu, who's based at the Chan School of Medicine at University of Massachusetts and is the SerialEM facility director there. And he is also a member of the support group for SerialEM, and he will talk to us today about using HexAuFoil grids within SerialEM. And then after that, we will have Dr. William Rice, who is at the NYU Grossman School of Medicine. And he will speak about using HexAuFoil grids with Leginon, which I think will be very interesting. We're very excited to be widening the use of HexAuFoil grids to communities outside of. So far, we've concentrated a little bit with EPU. It's great to be introducing a wider range of different software for use with HexAuFoil. Okay, as I've been talking, I've seen we've had a couple more people start. So we'll just give it another couple of seconds. I think we usually start these about 5 past, and we're just coming up on 5 past. So yes, I will hand it over to Dr. Chen with the first talk.
Hello, everybody. My name is Chen Xu. I'm from the UMass, University of Massachusetts Chan Medical School. And in UMass, I currently lead a SerialEM core facility. And also, I'm the active member of a SerialEM support team. So if there is a request of the support, you have a problem, you need some help, feel free to reach out. And today in this webinar, I would like to share some experience with hex grids, now how to control it with the SerialEM. So this is one typical low mag montage in EPU or a Leginon world they call the grid atlas. So from here you can see a lot of the ice is okay. You can see the hexagon pattern of the mesh. Please ignore the few black vertical lines, stripes in the map, and those are caused by the beam is not spreading enough to cover the whole camera area. If we increase the magnification 1 click up, that won't be a problem. So you can see here there are few of the points picked under the red across 88, 94. Those are picked for later go to the high magnification. We call the medium mag montage. So this is the typical, again, this is the typical low mag montage. We do it inside the low dose mode surge. This is the 82X. This is on the Creos G2 with K3 with the quantum filter. So this is about montage about 4x6 a stage shift montage. It's taking about 2 to 3 minutes. So this is one of the typical low mag montage we got. Now from that, you go to a little bit higher magnification. So we usually stay above low magnification range. So this is probably the lowest magnification above the low magnification range. This is on the Talos Arctica, and the system is the K3 by continuum. We're using low dose view for this purpose. And this again, this is 2x3 stage shift montage. And here you can see the map stitched very well. You don't even see the line between the pieces. But if there's a line, if the pieces are not stitched well enough, you can play with these options inside the montage control panel. You reload the map until you get the pieces stitched together nicely enough, you're happy. And here now, we're going to find holes just like we do in the normal quantifier grids, square shape grids. And here, the only difference here is we we circle the hex grids here. So these are the only thing you do differently. So you input the hole diameter and the spacing roughly, and then you click the find holes. So this hole finder program routine will find all these holes positions, and also you find whole grid geometry of this whole pattern, how they arrange it. So basically find the two things are more or less related, closely related. Now, some of holes might not be good, you might not want them. So the green color here showing, so each of the cross, and so compact together, you couldn't see very well. So each of green cross is in the middle of the one hole. And green here means, usually means being rejected, excluded. Then red means included. Here you have 5 slide bar to play with a different cutoff filter, including the distance from the edge. Then you play with them until you're getting the holes you like. So this is the, after you play with them, you can see I get all the holes in the middle part. I excluded the hole from edge of the bar, mesh bar. So I get all these holes. So that working very nicely. So there's a 5 selected bar, also very powerful to getting all the things you wanted probably. So you can, if you're happy, you make them into a navigated points. You click the bottom. So you click this making navigator points to save it in the navigator. And so then after that, and you fire up a multiple record setup. From the multiple record setup, the first thing you probably need to do is you click on the last hole vector or the map hole vectors in the middle portion of this dialog to obtain the image shift vector. Now, after the hole finding, you got the stage vector of the whole grid pattern. And this one say, you use that pattern. Basically, you use that vector pattern to convert it to the image shift. So you have image shift vectors now to define how the image shift will work, how you shift your beam. Now, you clicked it, then you can see immediately I get a pattern. This pattern only have one layer of the rings. If you, this is a very small area, of course. Now the maximum shift is 0.6. So this is the distance between the holes. You want the pattern much larger to cover multiple holes, of course. In this case, then you can simply using the dial button on the top, somewhere here, dial button on the top. So to dial in this example is the 10 layers of the rings. So the maximum shift is 5.9. You might want to even a little bigger if you wanted, if you're more aggressive on this part. But it's okay. In this, this is roughly showing what we usually use. Around 5 or 6, we feel okay enough. Now, so now you get a pattern. You get a pattern. You already have the grid hole pattern from hole finder. With this both, you can fire up the combiner, combine the holes. Now you find the combined holes almost like you convolute them. So you click on combine those holes, will end up with a few less points from a lot of the holes. So those converted into a few holes with the bad image shift pattern already defined. In this case, we have 19 of these final positions, and each one covered 100 something, 116 to 300 something holes. So there are many holes for each of the positions. So what we need to do from that point is you ask a stage to go to that position, and then you shift the image to take multiple shots. So that's the pipeline. So now you can also display differently. You can play with the display options. You have all acquired flag turned on. You can get in the outline of this pattern. Here is actually showing there are one pattern, one position, all the holes are good. We're taking shots, so they're only showing the outline, but not showing the individual shots. But for other positions, there is at least one non-perfect holes we excluded. So in this case, this whole pattern don't show the outline, it show the individual shot for the good holes instead. So this is similar to the before. So basically, you end up with a few points. You might want to refine the image shift vectors for the very high magnification. Record R, we used to use. Now, because in the beginning, you using the whole vectors, you converted to the image shift vectors in that same magnification. When you move to the very high magnification, that might be a little bit of mismatch there. So you wanted to refine it, make sure in the high magnification, you got exactly what you see is what you wanted. So you might want to refine it. In the middle portion of the multiple exposure setup, and that few buttons to help you to how to do the refine, but I'm not going to cover it here. Now, now we have to skip holes sometimes. The whole distance, the whole diameter is very small, 0.3 microns, 0.29 microns, and spacing between the holes is 0.6 microns. So they're very compact compared to 1.2, 1.6, this square-shaped holes. So this actually utilizes the positions more, areas more efficiently. The beam diameter on the crills, you can get 0.6, 0.7, somewhere around there, and can be very comfortable to cover each of the holes. But on the 200 kV machine, even with the smallest C2 aperture, in order to maintain the parallel beam condition, so the beam usually larger than that, larger than 0.7, 0.6. So if you end up with a 1.2, you will definitely touch the adjacent hole you're going to take next. So they're going to be a problem. So we need to skip the hole for this. Now, in SerialEM pipeline, skip the hole is very simple. It's the same thing as before. You check the grid. Again, you find the holes, you check the hex grid, you find all the holes you wanted using the slide bar. But in the end, you wanted to check the one thing. It's called use the best 1/3 of the subnet of the holes. So basically, you excluded 2/3 of the holes, but you only choosing 1/3 of the holes from the hole finder. You use that one to construct a hexagon pattern. So this is almost like the other 2/3 of the holes are even not there. So you get a hexagon pattern on the different as before. Spacing is larger. But it's same thing. You get you from the hexagon, a hexi pattern hole finder. You're using this one, taking 1/3 of the holes. So then do the same thing. You save those holes, the 1/3 of the holes into a navigator. Then you define a pattern. Define the image shift pattern by clicking these big buttons in the middle using the hole finder. Hole directors, then you combine them. You combine them into a few stage positions. So this is here. I will show you the example with 5 layers of this holes, a big spacing pattern. This maximum shift is 5.1. You can make this couple of these larger rings. But you can see when I put the beam there 1.0, that displays this beam edge were touching the adjacent hole. But this is okay because those holes will be skipped. We're only taking the hole in the middle. So now there's a pity because a lot of the holes, one this is the same thing as a different display, same thing as before. You can see a lot of the area skipped, even they are very good. So there are 2/3 of the holes are skipped, but at least you can use in 200 kV, you can control it when you cannot get in a very small beam size. At least this way you can control it. Now, something else we're talking about it. This is looking very good, but they will also cause some problem. So this whole pattern, very sharp, a perfect, like a crystalline hole pattern can dominate your cross correlation process. So we're talking about cross correlation processing. We used mainly for many actions here. So we got a problem from this. So David eventually developed a routine called erase periodical peaks to handle this problem. So I will show you this one. So these 2 images, one of the hex and one of the typical 1.2, 1.3 quantifoil. They are close to this. The scale are close, fairly close scale. The hex have many more holes in the one single image view, and also have a good contrast, very good contrast, because the gold foil. Now, cross correlation can easily get it wrong with those kind of images due to the periodical peak feature domination. You can end up with a different holes, a wrong hole or wrong row of holes. And many operations in the SerialEM based on the cross correlation, such as a stage tilt eccentricity, autofocusing, and so on. So this definitely poses a problem. Now, the relying to item or routine to go to the position, to go to the precisely position, they also using some cross correlation feature in there. So this also affected. So we got an issue. Now, with David's program, you can see an image in here. Their image align and focus control panel. The very last one, there is a checkbox called erase periodical peak in align and focus. Now, I can show you this how this is working. You need to check it. If you do eccentricity, you do the autofocusing with this kind of many hole image. You can check how this is working by copy one of the images into the align buffer. Here is a buffer P. You also have a buffer in your image, similar image in buffer A. And then you go to process, you go to show cross correlation. It will show you the cross correlation peak look like. Now, without checking this option, you can see those are the correlation peak. Those peak basically are the crystalline peak, periodical peak from the holes. So you can see it can easily dominated by those holes, by these peaks. If you check it, if you the one you check it, you can see all this periodical peak erased or most clean. Then you have some real peak can standing out to getting correct answer from this one. So so this is the routine you need to check on. Now, in low dose, when we do the low dose medium montage, we're using the inside the low dose mode in order to go to the using the rely to item function to go to each of the positions. In this kind of the grid, we also need to check the erase the peak, periodic peak in low dose. So this will turn on that action when you do the rely to atom in low dose. Okay, so this is the one of the image we're taking from this one of the holes, and then we have power spectrum in the parallel. We call it the image pair. So this image you're taking a 215 kx super resolution pixel will be 0.2 something. So the dose rate around 25. The total dose are around 40. Super resolution mode, non-CDS. I'm trying to show we need to take such a picture to see the eyes quality, because the eyes, visually in the low magnification, you could not see it. The contrast is so high, you could not see it. From here, the power spectrum will show you how the eyes look like. If you see taurine not very clear, or if you see the water ring very thick, then you know the eye is a little bit thick there. So there is a few disadvantages using a larger magnification. In this case, if you use a smaller magnification, you are including a lot of the black area, which is the gold area anyway, was useless. So you have to use a little bit larger area, and the dose rate and dose exposure time can be all very comfortable just over there in high magnification. And if you bending back to the camera, the imaging, so the camera performance DQE will be also better. Now, at the end, I have a few wishes and thoughts that I want to share with you. See, if we have a way to make some defects, for example, a few places that the two holes link together, like a broken together, become a feature. If you have randomly about 10 of these feature pairs, whole pairs in the one mesh, so those are become a feature of the image, will help a lot for the cross correlation, possibly. And SerialEM currently, we requested the feature skipping the very center hole, because we need that one to do some initial autofocusing. We'll burn the hole anyway. So, but currently that's not put in yet, I think. Now, the hex grid itself is actually seem to be very highly efficiency to use the area. It's compact. It's more uniform. It's actually quality is very good. Now, since each mesh containing about 5,000 holes, so your 24-hour day session, you're only taking about 2 to 3 meshes if you're working on the creos, if you're not skipping the holes. So you really need important to make sure you're collecting on the best mesh as possible. So check the eyes, check the particle quality before you commit massively. And the final message I got from the testing as a image quality is actually pretty good from Hex. So we have some industry users. We use all different kind of grids. So some of the data sets they get from the Hex grids is a lot better than the from other different kind of grids. I think the uniform, the stiffness of the less moving, so the design that you are touching the beam, touching the edge of each hole, I think that this is all really good things. All right. In the end, I want to thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Chen, for that very insightful talk about using HexAuFoil within SerialEM. I'm sure a lot of our viewers will have questions, both about the HexAuFoil grids and about SerialEM more widely, and I would really encourage them to put those in the chat just now, and we will get at the end of this webinar to dealing with as many of those questions as possible. But right now, I'd like to move on to our next and final speaker, Dr. William Rice, who is the director of the CryoEM core facility at NYU Grossman School of Medicine, and he'll be taking us through today using HexAuFoils with the Leginon suite of software. Bill, if you'd like to take it away. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Bill Rice, and I'm the CryoEM director at NYU Langone Health, and I'm happy to talk to you today about how to use Leginon to collect data on HexAuFoil grids. So the microscope we're using for collection, and I'll be talking about today, is a Titan Krios. Ours is configured with a Gatan K3 and has a bioquantum energy filter, and it's also been updated with fringe-free imaging. And that's important because the size of the holes is very small. In order to match the beam with a hole, the beam has to be very small. So Leginon, like most low-dose software, has several presets that you have to define in it, and this is a listing of the presets that I'll be talking about today. So going from low mag to high mag, there's grid, which is the lowest mag, and that's used for just making the grid atlas. There's a square preset, which is used for taking an image of the entire square. That's also in low mag mode. And then going up higher in mag, there's whole, or HL, and that's for making sub-square images, or for exposure targeting. And that's at 4800x. And then at the highest mag, there's the exposure magnification, which we either do in regular counting mode, which is called ENN, or ESN for super resolution mode. And for HexAuFoil grids, we have to do this at 165,000x, which is around half an angstrom per pixel. And that's again because the hole size is so small. And then there's a focus mode, which is in the same mag as exposure mode. except it's done at a highly binned image and also without any taking movies. So there's some alignments that are absolutely critical for data collection on hexafoil grids. The first thing is that the preset alignment from hole to exposure needs to be as good and accurate as possible. And secondly, and most importantly, the image shift needs to be as accurate as possible. And even with this, making it as accurate as possible, I found I needed to use 4800x in whole mag instead of our usual 3000x, 3600x. Otherwise, the bottom left corner of the images were always a little bit misaligned. But at 4800x, they were very good. And on the left is shown an image at 3600x and then at 4800x. I got around 240 images per stage movement at 4800x versus 430 for 3600x. And overall, in terms of throughput, this was about a 7% difference, so not really that significant. So for initial setup, I'm assuming that all the prerequisites are met, which basically means a well-aligned microscope, where pivot points are already aligned. We don't check these we don't align these all the time because they should be very stable. There needs to be a good image shift, beam shift calibration. You should be set up for fringe-free imaging, and ideally it's just been collecting and hasn't been sitting idle, say, for after just coming out of a cryo cycle. You also have to do a full tune of the energy filter at the exposure magnification, and you might want to do a fast tune at the other magnifications. So first of all, I'll do a bit of a segue into how to align the image shift to make it as accurate as possible in Leginon. And so that is because of the large to focus in whole mode. So when you image shift all the way from the center to the very corners of the image, it may not be as accurate as you need, and it's particularly sensitive again for these hexafoil grids. And so there's a calibrations app to make these fine adjustments. And so what you first do in the calibrations app is set up the exposure image to take a very fast image instead of taking a movie. So I usually set up FAN or focused in the exposure mode, so that exposure will just take a fast focus image. You then turn on user verification of selected targets for the exposure settings and also have it skip an automated hole finder. And also, you can also set up to not allow focus targets and user verification, just so that you don't always have to have a focus target. So what you do is you go over a square. Ideally, this is like a quantifoil type grid, which has an irregular array of holes, and then simulate a hole target over that to take a picture. And then you set up several targets at the edges of holes in various directions, and you do it at the edge so that it's easier to judge how accurate the image shift actually is. And then you have to take a whole bunch of images. And then in the web viewer, you can then compare what it took versus where it was targeted. So in this case, this one is targeted quite near the center, and it was accurate, whereas this image was targeted with a larger image shift, and it was less accurate. And so this would indicate that you need to realign the image shift. In order to do that, you run this calibrations app and run this scale rotation node, which is here on the left. And then when you press play in that, you then are able to calibrate the magnification that you're used for targeting. So it shows up this little window, and then you choose to edit the magnification. And then you can add a scale factor and a rotation factor, and it has a comment so you can keep track of the changes that you've made. So you make a guess as to what scale and what adjustment needs to be made. You then go back and then simulate another hole target, and then take more images, and then compare whether it's gotten any better. And in this case, it has gotten better. If you kind of check this as a smaller image shift, and it was accurate. And then this is a large image shift, and it's also still accurately taking the edge of the hole that I wanted. So this may take a few hours to do, because you have to sort of iteratively do it until you're happy with it. But once it's done, it's actually stable for many months at least. So getting back to the collection, what you would do is, first of all, do the Leginon calibrations. So this is easiest to do on a carbon containing grid, and you would mark a position of an open square which has vacuum, and then a square which has carbon on it, and then you're going to use these two squares for the alignments. So first thing you're going to do is over the open square, set up the set up the exposure preset. So you can kind of see this is the list of this is the magnification. It's set to a random to focus range of between 1.1 and 1.5 microns under focus. The beam size is 596 nanometers. It's set at binning 2. And then what you do is you take a picture. You choose to take a picture here, which means take a dose image. It will then take an image over vacuum and measure the dose. And then it will say, do you want to use this measured dose for the preset? You just say yes. And then that's saved. And then under the other fine calibrations, you want to set it to save 8x8 stats. And this speeds up collection quite a bit. You want to set it to calculate these stats from the center only. This has not actually been added to this part has not been actually added to the repository yet, but it will be added soon. And then I usually limit it to 40 frames per image for speed purposes on the K3. And again, it's set up in counting mode, which is binning 2, because binning 1, which is the sort of natural super resolution mode in Leginon, on the K3. And so again, the beam size is 596 nanometers. So then under these settings, you collect a gain reference in Leginon, which is done under the correction node. And then that way there's a gain reference used for frame alignment. You then go to under the navigation node, again, staying in ESN, you take a picture in it and then measure the intensity over vacuum. That shows up as the mean here. So what I usually do is take 3 or 4 images and get the average. And then in the ICE-T node, under the settings, which you click with this little menu, you can then put in the vacuum intensity there. And then also, there's another setting here to use the entire image or not. And so you would not want to use the entire image. You just want to use the center. Now this is only important. This only actually takes effect when the 8x8 images are not taken. So if you don't have the modification that I've made yet, because I haven't added it, you can have it take this just from the center, and then if you turn off the 8x8 images, even though it'll be a little bit slower, the first few images you take will have accurate ice thickness measurements, and then you can turn on the 8x8 later, with the caveat that the later ice thicknesses won't be accurate anymore. Again, because of the gold. You set up the ALS coefficient to what it should be. This is what it should be for us at 15 for a 15 EV slit width. You then go to a carbon area and make it eccentric, and then set the focus target to get the focusing right, and then send the exposure preset to it. And then if you have Sherpa available, which we do, you can then easily do auto astigmatism and auto coma free alignment, and then save these in Leginon using the beam tilt image node. You can then save rotation center from scope, and it'll save it. And then that way, that's in case something goes wrong later or Leginon unexpectedly crashes, which it shouldn't, but if it does, you can then restore it easily instead of having to redo it. You then align the whole exposure presets, and what I usually do is just find an obvious feature and then go to exposure mode, and then move using the joystick of the microscope, move over it so it's exactly there. Go back to whole and do an image shift so that these things are centered in both modes, and then in the presets manager you can then save the current image shift in whole mode. So finally, this is now all set up. So it's time to insert the HexAuFoil grid. So you can insert a grid and ideally quickly navigate to a square just using the screen, and then over that square you can then simulate a Z-focus target to make it eccentric. And then set up grid atlas targeting. So you put in a label, and this is our typical radius, which gives around 20, which requires 23 pictures to do a full atlas. It takes the atlas, and then you get it here. This takes about 5 minutes, and this is the grid atlas. So you can see there's a large number of areas. There is a gradient, and certainly one part is too thick, but overall it's not too bad, and there are many usable holes here. These are other atlases that I took on the same session. From different grids, and even though none of the grids are perfect, they still have actually a lot of targets, as you'll see later. Next thing to do before you submit anything is set up the hole and exposure targeting so that user verification is allowed, so that it won't just blast off and go without you being able to set anything. So now you can go back to the atlas under square targeting, set an acquisition target in square, and submit it. It will then take a square image, and this is an image of one of the squares. Now, since it's a HexAuFoil grid, it's actually a hexagon. So the first thing to do to make things easier for yourself is using the measuring tool. You can you measure the diameter of this hole. So this is about 925 pixels in diameter. And then under the hole targeting, under the template settings in hole targeting, you then enter that diameter. Actually, you enter a little bit bigger, maybe 10 or 20% bigger. So I put 1200 here. And then you then can hit the test button, and you should see a correlation image with a bright spot at the center, which corresponds to the center of the square. And then you just set a threshold value under the threshold, and then hit test, and then you should see just a single blob in the center of the grid. And I'm not going to go through the rest of it, but you can then set things so that it will just use that same blob and put an exposure target, which is shown, a hole target, which is shown with the green rectangle, and a focus target, which is shown with the blue cross in the center of the hole of the square. And then submit those targets. Then when it takes a whole image, which is a subsquare image, you then set up for exposure targeting. And so the first thing to do is you measure this diameter of this hole, again, using the measuring tool. And it shows up as about a diameter of 43. So then under the template, you then put, again, a bit larger image. So I put 55, just to make the correlation work better. And then hit test. And you should see a whole bunch of white correlation spots under every hole. Set the threshold to a number so that it will find all of them, and then hit test, and then you should see white spots where all the holes are. You can then set up the blob finder. It should find all of the holes. The blue dot is the blob, and then go to the lattice settings, and then the important thing here is you set this lattice spacing to 0. So because this is actually a hexagonal lattice, but Leginon assumes a square lattice, if you put a spacing of 0, it simply accept all the blobs and make them all targets. So that's what you want. Once it's done that, you can then measure the diameter between the center of the target and the edge of the hole, again using the measuring tool, and this measures out to be 14 pixels. So this is important for the ice thickness prediction. So you put this radius in the hole statistics, and then you can then mouse over it to get the hole thickness information. And so this one has a mean thickness of, say, 0.3. You then go under the hole targeting, and then set up the ice thickness threshold. So that's up here. So you put the minimum value to eliminate empty holes, and then a maximum value to eliminate too thick holes, and then a standard deviation value to eliminate holes that have say a blob of ice or a bunch of contamination in them. And then you can set up the focus hole selection. For now, you can just put center, so it will do in the center of all of these targets, it'll put one focus target, and then choose to make sure that the use target template is chosen, and then put an acquisition target at 0, 0. And then you'll see that it'll have all of these acquisition targets, which are again shown in the green rectangles. And you'll notice that I put the focus target kind of in a bad spot. I wouldn't want it here. I would want it up here. So using the measuring tool, you can then again measure where you want it to be. So the distance between the center of the hole and where you want it to be. So this is x34, y minus 32. You then go back to this menu and then turn off the autofocus hole, and then add that template into the focus template. And then you have all of the hole targets. Now it will only choose the center of these, but these are all at least in the right place. So that now you're ready to submit, and it will take all of these images. So it's already, it found 245 acquisition targets. So then you then submit it, and while it's taking these pictures, you can then kind of go back to the hole targeting and play with the hole targeting settings and set up a lattice of acquisition targets in the bottom part here, and so that it'll automatically kind of paint over the entire hole, the entire square, so that you'll have a whole bunch of targets and you won't have to click these all manually. So now once you can either pause the collection or wait till it finishes, and then you can add a bunch of other square targets. Now this number of squares was more than enough for 15 hours imaging, so more than enough for overnight. So you really don't need many squares to go overnight on these grids because there's so many targets. These are a bunch of sample images from the collection. So on the top are the raw images, which were aligned in using Motion Core 2, and then on the bottom are the particle pics from WARP. And hopefully on some of these you can see the contrast is enough that you can see some of the particles. Now again, because of the often image viewers use auto contrasting, and because of the gold being clipped in, the auto contrasting can be messed up. So sometimes you may need to manually adjust the contrasting to kind of make this darker so that you actually see the details. But the particle picker I was using, as you can see, did pick a lot of images. It did pick a lot of particles. And so this is kind of a montage of images from one whole target, and you can kind of see that even though it was image shifting over that entire area, it was very consistent in its targeting, and so that's what you want to see. That kind of shows that the image shift calibration is good. Now I tend to use WARP for auto picking, so I threw all of the collection into WARP. It got around an average of 60 particles per image overall, and around maybe 20% of the images showed up as junk, and that's because of the gold that was clipped in. If I'd gone a little bit higher in mag, that would get rid of it. But to be honest, as you see from those images, just about the entire hole is being covered by the image, so it seemed to be quite good. We measure ice thickness in Leginon always. So the ice thickness was extremely consistent on the HexAuFoil grids. So this one was all of the images were virtually all were between 60 and 70 nanometers. This contrasts with other grids types where it certainly is more variable because there tends to be more of a gradient of thickness. Plus, within the hole there may be a gradient of thickness. So this is kind of a typical ultrafoil grid collection where, say, the thickness was for most of the images was between 40 and 80 nanometers with a hard cutoff at around between 90 and 100 nanometers. The drift, we measure drift in Leginon always through Motion Core 2, and the drift was extremely low. So this is a plot of the average frame to frame drift for the first 5 frames in terms of angstroms of movement between frames. And so this is a log scale. So the blue line is 1 angstrom of movement between frames, and so the HexAuFoil was averaging around 0.1 angstroms. And again, this is contrasting with an ultrafoil grid, which is also still very good, but a gold grid, but it below 1 angstrom overall. But certainly the HexAuFoil grid did show indeed lower frame to frame movement. So I processed the images using a very standard processing in CryoSpark, nothing very fancy, just importing the particles from WARP, doing 2D classification, selecting good classes, and so on. And in the end, from 276,000 particles, it reached 1.69 angstrom resolution, which was quite good. This is horse spleen apoferritin, not the cloned apoferritin even, so this was quite good actually. I compared the speed of collection in different modes. So the overnight collection I let it go for 15 hours. It got 8,000 images and 276,000 final particles. I then collected in super resolution. I only had about a little under 8 hours left. It got 3,000 images and 102,000 final particles. It went to close to the same resolution, 1.77. I then limited the counting one to the same 7 hours and 40 minutes. And in the same amount of time, you would have got 3,000 images. You get 4,200 images in the counted mode, and it reached virtually the same, just slightly better resolution. And back in February, I had done another test on beta galactosidase with 17 hours overnight. It's almost 7,000 images. This was super res mode again, and that one reached 1.9 angstroms. I did freeze the images under the grids under a few different conditions for this last test. So I varied the blot time not the blot force, and also the glow discharge method. Overall, I would say I didn't do enough testing. I would have to see if even longer blots could get even thinner ice, but the ice was very consistent on all of the grids. And I did notice also that even the different size squares did have different did have almost the same ice thickness. So that's about it. Thanks for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hello, thank you. Hello again. Lovely to see you at the end of that. Thank you both to Chen and Bill for some very interesting talks there. Be great now to have some questions. We have some already. We can't have people ask questions out loud, but if you can write them in there's should be a cartoon of a question on the right hand side at the top. If you press there and answer your question there, we will work through them all and answer them all. I just wanted to mention, Chen, in the end of your talk, you talked about needing some markers or some missing grid bars on the HexAuFoil. And we do actually have in all of the quarters deliberately some hexagons that are mushed together, different numbers in each quarter for orientation. But would you like more of them? Is that what you're saying?
I think each mesh you have this kind of defects. You have 10 of them, or maybe 8 or 10 of them will be good for cross correlation. Yeah, because there's such a good contrast dominant things. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there are some already. We could consider. We do have control of what the pattern looks like, so we could consider adding more. And that
maybe you can ship me 1 or 2. Let me take it to try it to see if there's a help a lot with this headache problem. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So turning to questions, the first question we had online was somebody asking if we felt that HexAuFoil grids helped limit preferred orientation at all of a protein. I don't know if either of you have had thoughts on that.
I do not have this specific the data to show it. I do not think it can help that dramatically. But that's just my thought.
Yeah, I don't think I saw an orientation difference with when the beta gal. I mean that sometimes you can kind of see a distribution. I don't think it was any different than usual.
Yeah, we've just popped a poll up there. Just interested to see your thoughts on the talk. Yeah, I think that my experience with people reporting back to me, you get, as with any of these things, when you try a different sample, you change something, you can have different effects. Some people have said they've seen more preferred orientation. Some people have said they've seen less. So I think you're right. I'm not sure we can comment really on that. That would be nice. The same person's also asked, Bill, what version of SerialEM includes HexAuFoil checkboxes and setup tools?
Oh, so this question for me. I think.
Oh, sorry, Chen. No.
Yeah, I think it will be 4.1 beta at least. You can have this maybe built in 6 months ago, something like somewhere around there. You can, if you check the beta or the testing version, you should be able to see it.
Okay. I also have a question. Again, I have some thoughts on this, but I'd be interested in hearing you. Somebody asking if we could provide advice on translating grid preparation protocols from the use of holey carbon grids to HexAuFoils. Can you infer optimal grid making parameters such as blot times, glow discharge parameters for a given protein on HexAuFoil grids from a protocol optimized for carbon grids for that protein?
I don't have the data in front of me, but I can try to gather something. You can forward the question to me. I can respond to the people to answer this.
Yeah, from our point of view, I mean, and it'd be great if Chen, you could provide some further information. From our point of view, we usually recommend doubling glow discharge time compared to an ultrafoil at least. I'm not sure what I would say compared to a carbon. I wouldn't worry about glows discharging HexAuFoil. They're all gold. You're not going to damage them. So go for it, is what I would say. On the blotting time, long and hard. So maybe double. Okay. Okay. Question here is what microscope did you use, Bill?
Oh,
thank you for the great presentation, he says.
It was a Titan Krios with a K3 bioquantum.
Thank you. For those asking, we will have a recording of the webinar available, and we'll send out an email after this so that everybody can download it and watch it when they watched. Another question for you, Bill. Did you have any trouble fitting CTF on warp? We noticed CTF Find 3 on warp fails to fit at pixel sizes below 1 angstrom.
No, it seemed to be all right. No, I didn't notice any any problem.
Okay.
Maybe just there might be some settings that you have to adjust or something, but I think we use, yeah, it didn't seem to have any problem, no.
Okay. I'm going to be terrible now, and just say that on some of these processing questions, we are looking at having a webinar that moves on to looking at particle picking and things like that specifically with these, because we are discovering there are some differences and some ways you can optimize that. Somebody, I'm going to answer this one. So somebody asking if you can collect data using EPU with this grid pipe. The answer is yes, definitely. We've done a couple of webinars now, one in June and one in September. You can find them online at quantifoil.com, talking about collecting data with EPU. So yes, and do look at the advice online from the webinars. There were some great webinars there. And we do have these talks archived and available for rewatching. So yes, they are all, if you look at the HexAuFoil page on quantifoil.com online, you will find the previous 2 webinars and very shortly a link to this one. So yes, we have all of these available. We're very keen to build up a repository of information about collecting data with HexAuFoil. I am sure if anybody has any further questions about SerialEM or Leginon, that Chen and Bill will be very happy to answer on another occasion or offline.
Yes, sure. Yeah, certainly.
So thank you very much. It was great to see how easy it was to use these grids with this setting. I know that some people are a little bit nervous. Did you find it relatively straightforward? That's a good question.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad to switch, I would say. Yeah, because we just had to adjust a few parameters like I went over. So yeah, I don't think it was very hard. No.
And you were okay with the gold in the images. So a lot of people I know are concerned about the change in contrast that causes. Do you have any comments or difficulty with that?
Yeah, I didn't know. Like I said, I just used the regular warp particle picking and it seemed to be all right. I think it is a contrast issue, but so when you have all of this black gold in it, it will throw off a lot of auto contrast programs. So if you can manually set the contrast, that helps a lot to sort of bring the particles out, where you can have it kind of make the gold pure black so that that's not part of the spectrum.
Jen, did you have any other comments?
Yeah, in my talk, I probably people realize that I made a mistake there. I said that disadvantage using the larger magnifications. So actually should be advantages. So we're using a little bit high magnifications, so we can exclude the black thing, so make it easy to see particle everything, and also the DQE, the quality performance of the camera also be better. You oversampling it and you can bring it back, things like that. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. And somebody here asking if you use the protein concentration required with the grids was similar to that you used for quantifoil grids.
It was the same for me.
I think it's similar.
Okay.
I think it's similar.
I will say that I've had a couple of people come to me and say that they have reduced the concentration relative to quantifoil carbon. Those are people that also need to use reduced concentration with ultrafoil, and they tend to be people who have a lot of protein sticking to the carbon. So when you move to gold, there's more. Yeah. So,
yeah, I think it doesn't make sense because the most of the liquid will be pushed into the hole in this gold foil. The carbon, the rough surface of the carbon, you can stick a lot of the liquid and the proteins there. It makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're just coming up to the top of the hour anyway. It seems like, unless there are any last minute questions, I think I'd just like to say thank you to you both for speaking today. It's been a lovely seminar. Thank you.
Yeah, very pleasure.
Well, it's been my pleasure to have you here. And I will wish you both and everybody online a very happy Christmas. And hopefully see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you and goodbye. And thank you to everybody who tuned in and listened. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, everyone.